Welcome back to Everyday Humanity. This is Season 3, Episode 7, and we, as always, are so glad you're here. I'm one of your hosts, Beth, and I'm joined also, as always, by Dennis. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Beth. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Always glad to be at the microphone with you.
I know. Now that this is on air, people see the facial expression.
They do.
So they might actually wonder if that's a true statement.
And they see you flailing when you talk.
I know. I don't know. I'll sit on my hands for a second. We are joined this week by Jeff Abbot from Ada Bible Church. And I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better because we've been chatting a little bit before we started to roll here. And I don't know much about you as a person or your role there at Ada. So can you just start by way of introduction and tell us all you feel like telling us right now?
All right. My name is Jeff. I am the Director of Missions at Ada Bible Church. I've been on staff for 11 years, so I'm one of the older leaders now in the church, which is a weird feeling.
Yeah.
My wife, Vicki, is also on staff, and she's the children's director for all of our campuses. So we're that all in, all the time family, and that's kind of been our life with church. We have 2 adult kids, Mitchell and Hannah, that also reside in Grand Rapids here, but we're empty nesters and we're loving it.
Oh, wow. Well,
Loving
that's
it.
going to take me down a rabbit trail.
Yeah. I'm a couple of years away from empty nest, and there are days when I'm like, this is going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think it's hard. It was really hard for me. It took me a while to get through. My daughter's 25 and she's gone like 7 miles away, but I see her 7 minutes a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That would be.
Our measure is the kids keep coming back. So we're like, they keep coming back to see us. So
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Did something
We
right.
didn't fail as parents.
Yeah.
So no, we love it.
What did you do at the church prior to
So
becoming this
prior
role?
to COVID, my role was called Service Programming Director, which is a fancy way of saying that I was the leader for the weekend team. So your worship teams, production teams, creative team, communications team, and work closely with the pastors just to help plan, prepare, and execute weekend services at our 4 campuses. And pre-COVID, that was like 15 services a weekend. So
Wow.
in multiple spaces. So it was a fun, challenging, exciting job, with a kind of a large platform with a great communicator and, those wildly talented people that you're working with. And so
Jeff is great.
I loved it. Loved it.
It's so funny because go to church and you see the people leading worship and you see the person speaking and you maybe see, if you have kids, you see the people leading or volunteering in the kids ministry. Most people don't stop and think that it takes people like you and like here, it takes Matthew, our producer, to really make these things happen.
Absolutely.
That's a huge job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's uniquely challenging in a way that you're dealing with a lot of art and a lot of technology at the same time.
Right.
And
right.
with the express intent of helping communicate the truth of who God is and what He does to thousands of people each weekend.
And then mixed in there is human beings.
Yeah,
right? That have their own sort of, I really wanted this to come out this way. And
I've never experienced that tension before.
Never. No. We have a saying around here that life would be great if it wasn't for humans.
We don't say anything like that.
No, I'm sure you don't. No.
So that was, I heard you say pre-COVID, you had a certain number of services. And what does it look like today?
Today it looks like, let me count them, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 services.
Okay.
10 services across 4 campuses. Saturday night was present at most campuses and a couple extra venues at campuses, and we've since scaled that back to really, we call it just right-sizing our congregation. Probably like most churches post-COVID, as post-COVID emerged, we were kind of clamoring for what we were.
Right.
And we just had to go through some growth to go like, this is who we are today and embrace it and, create the best services possible for who God has with us today.
Yeah, I can remember about 9 months ago, I was having coffee with a pastor, and not my pastor, but a pastor at another church, and he was sharing, we were talking about coming out of COVID, and what's a church going to look like coming out of COVID. And he said, Dennis, I actually don't know how big my congregation is anymore. He said, I knew how big my congregation was before COVID. I don't know how big it is anymore.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, that's a dynamic that you don't prepare for.
Right.
Right?
Right. I mean, I think during the COVID season, we saw maybe 30% exit just because they didn't align with choices we made, or we weren't making the right choice. People's value systems were different. There were churches that their doors remained open.
Right.
We just chose to be initially we just wanted to be a good member of the community.
Right.
If you couldn't attend school and couldn't go to work, we didn't feel like pulling you into church was just a posture we wanted to take. And we had a robust online platform.
Right.
And so for us, we felt like we weren't as disconnected as others were. And we put all of our energy into how do we create the best online small groups and weekend experiences and communication that we can, week after week after week. And that kind of became our life.
Yeah.
In a good way. But since the dust has settled, I think we've still maybe migrated down to 90% of what we were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So I've been here at Mel Trotter for 11 years, so similar time frame. And, we were talking a little bit off air. Ada Bible has been one of those churches that has always supported Mel Trotter. And sometimes it's financial. Oftentimes it's financial. It's also the giving weekends where we may say,
tables.
hey, the giving tables, we need diapers or we need this. And Ada Bible has always come through. So can you talk a little bit about the heart for missions that Ada has?
Yeah, our mission statement is strengthen churches locally and globally to carry out Jesus' mission in the world, which is a little bit of a different mission statement than I've read in most places. And we deeply care about the local church. We deeply care about our community, and we want to be a great presence in it, not just financially, but with our hands and our feet and our time. I personally am deeply passionate about our city. I love Grand Rapids, and I love all that it offers, and it's a wonderful, safe, it's enjoyable community to be a part of. It's creative, and we have beautiful seasons in the river, and and so I just love Grand Rapids, and Grand Rapids is blessed with 700 churches in greater West Michigan, and so we want to play a role in just helping resource churches. How do we help churches thrive? Because we believe a thriving church hopefully results in thriving families and thriving school systems and thriving workplaces that all Christians are, people following Christ are impacting. And so we want to be a part of helping Ada Bible Church not just be happy and healthy, but as many other agencies, as well as making a difference in our community. There's real needs here. I mean, you guys are doing amazing work, but just with homelessness, food insecurity, housing, just the list goes on and on of how much opportunity there is for God's people to jump in and help create His kingdom here now, kind of mindset is how I would phrase it. There is this world that God has designed for us. We get to be caretakers of it, and He's given us a roadmap on how we may love and care for one another, and we get to play a part in executing that. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, kingdom now, kingdom not yet, right?
Yep.
Here we go.
Yep.
So you made a transition, obviously, from all of these just platforms, and you said a robust platform that you were leading, I imagine, at the time. What caused you to make the change from that sphere of influence at Ada to what you're doing now?
Yeah, that's such an interesting story. There's been 2 times in my life where God's just kind of jumped in and pointed me in a different direction that I would have never chosen. Like if you had asked me 3 years ago, hey, Jeff, would you like to be missions director? I would have said, no, not at all. Now it's like, I love this, I think, more than I love doing the other thing.
Wow.
I just love it so much. And so I have to go back in time just to set a little context. Early in as I moved into full-time ministry, I worked for a church in Hickory, North Carolina. My boss was from Andy Stanley's church at North Point. So he had great relationships. And as I was learning more things, he brought me to North Point for like a week at a time. And I just volunteered to learn. And I witnessed this humongous church with a humongous platform being wildly generous with their time, with their knowledge, with technology. They were retiring. I was like, man, God, if I ever get to, I'm going to do that. And so as my career changed and grew, I tried to always emulate that. So I have a reputation for being a good church stage designer, and have gotten to speak on that several times. And so every time I did a church stage design, I had made it free, available to the public, and just said, here it is, use it. Right. If our church retired equipment, we would make it available. Say, here, use it. So that was just kind of my mentality. Always believed that Ada Bible Church is an open book. We buy the same technology everybody else does. here's how we use it. Come learn.
Yeah.
So that's been our posture, and it's Jeff Mannion's posture as well. So COVID comes upon us, and Ada being a large church in West Michigan, my phone just blew up, and our other leaders' phones just blew up going, what do? We shut the doors to our church. We're disconnected from our people. So as a leadership team, we spent some time brainstorming, and the idea was thrown out there, Jeff, if we gave you some missions resources, knowing my desire that I like to help churches, as kind of a subset, could you help them? And so we talked with my production team, and we said, yeah, and we put together simple streaming packages for churches, a laptop, a camera, or other technology, and we took it to them, and we deployed it at their church and taught them how to use it.
That's great.
So through 2020, we did various versions of that where we gave them technology, or if they had technology, we taught them to use it, or if they had resources, we helped them buy well. But through 2020, we did that like 60 times.
Wow.
We also hosted some virtual fundraising events for nonprofits, and with our cameras, infrastructure, or I went and filmed on site. And so it was a really unique year that I had this world at Ada Bible Church. It was filming everything all the time. And then the evenings, I'm out in the city and just working with churches, especially a lot of urban churches,
Right.
just helping them get reconnected. Sometimes it was just a conversation to go, hey, Pastor, you've got this. This is a great camera,
Yeah.
and it's a connection to your people. Use it,
Right.
And some of it was just affirmation, just to say, this is good, do it, and help people understand the tool. So, yeah, I just had this weird life of filming all day and then serving in the evenings. And luckily we were post-kids, and so it was just a unique space. And I grew to love it. And at the end of 2020, leadership team said, hey, we really like this. Would you be interested in doing more? And I said, yes, if I can do less of something else. I was working 60, 70-hour weeks,
Wow.
pretty regularly. So I began a step back from the weekend service team, still leading behind the scenes, but younger leaders jumping up and grabbing the bull by the horns and leading our church that way with worship and technology and creativity. Into early 2021, the executive pastor at the time invited me to join some of the local missions work. So began having conversations with organizations like Mel Trotter, just learning how Ada was involved in the city. I only knew it from a communication standpoint. Hey, I need to do an announcement this weekend about Mel Trotter or somebody. And so my knowledge was limited and situational. Early 2021, began learning and participating in the local mission side. Later in 2021, began participating in the international mission side. And then November, they said, hey, we like the work you're doing. Would you consider doing this full time? I was like, yeah, I would. So February 7, 2022 was actually my last day on the production team. And February 9, I went to Africa for a week or 10 days. And
Good transition.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was actually the most unique experience, because I can remember sitting in an auditorium, kind of taking a picture and going, this is a moment in my life.
Yeah.
And then getting on a plane 2 days later and having God wreck me in completely different ways.
Yeah.
So there's kind of the abbreviated journey.
That's great. So leadership question for you.
Yes.
So you spent the better half of 11 years being the guy with how the stage looks, how the production goes, everything like that. Then God's moving you to a different thing, and you have to release some of this. You mentioned younger leaders coming, and now they're responsible for how the stage looks, how the production goes, things like that. When you leave an organization, it's a little bit easier. It's not easy, but it's a little bit easier. But when you're still a part of that organization and you're going there on Sunday, and now you're seeing other people do it maybe a little differently than you did it, how'd you work through that? Or how do you work through that?
I think being in my 50s helped a lot.
Yeah,
Because if I was
probably
30,
true.
If I was 30, I don't know if I could have done
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, right.
But it was, I've known these young men and women for a decade or more, some of them. And so I had a pretty specific trust with them.
Yeah.
And so I knew that it wasn't going to go off the rails. We had strong systems in place. And they began to change things slowly over time. And I can look at it now and go, those were good changes. I probably wouldn't have done them because I have older eyes.
Right.
And as they're, working to, build the next 10 years of our ministry, I think it's a good thing. So is it challenging? Yes. The biggest gift God gave me was a closed mouth. And
I'm still waiting for that gift.
That's right. Proverbs 10:19 is taped everywhere that I can look at it, right? Quiet.
But part of it is I had to create some distance.
Right.
And so, February 7 was a hard line.
Yeah.
And I stepped back and fully leaned into this new role, and created some space and let them lead. I didn't want them feeling any pressure.
Right.
Hey, here's a guy that built all this. If he says something, I should listen. I just said, no, I'm just going to hold my opinion. I'm an internal consultant if they need me.
Yeah.
And it's been great. I mean, it's been great. I love what they're doing.
So funny. I was thinking the same time as you asked that question, like, how you're there.
Right.
And people, of course, know that you have all this information. So it's, how do you say no, really, was what
Right.
I was wondering. Because really, in order to sort of let go, you have to say, well, what would you do, right?
Right.
Or you can't just answer everything and be all.
Well, and Ada has 4 campuses, so I was
Right.
always present at our broadcast site.
Yeah.
So now I'm not always present at our broadcast site, so I might be there once a month.
Yeah.
And so my presence changed as well, and the volunteers, began seeing the others as the leaders.
Right.
And,
Right.
firmly. And so it was helpful that I wasn't anchored at one specific campus any longer.
Yeah.
And actually now I'm actually at other churches regularly on Sundays, because I now have the ability to walk away and help a church with their challenges in real time.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to go see a church's challenges on Tuesday
Right.
at a rehearsal in an empty room, and then versus Sunday where it's full of people, and how's the whole team interact? Where's the pastor? How's he engaging? And
Right.
help them navigate some things with our experience.
Yeah. I think your comment about being in your 50s helped. Because, I'm in my 50s, and I have noticed something significantly has changed the last couple of years of my life, right? Where, there's time and time again in Scripture we see where God calls somebody that was the guy to now pour into somebody that's going to replace them, right? And if you would have told me 5 years ago that this is how I would feel now, and yet now I find myself thinking more about the people that are coming after me than I do about what am I going to do for the next 10 years until I retire.
I agree with that.
It's really a unique way that I think God just orders things and the calling that he puts on different seasons of our
Yeah,
lives.
it's not a perspective shift I experienced happening.
Right.
It just happened naturally.
Yes. Yeah.
And the wisdom of no comment is
Yeah.
sometimes the best wisdom God gives us.
I love it, by God's design. Of course, I can't speak about this specifically
being
for about
27.
being 27.
Being
yes.
27.
Yes. At least for another 10 months, I can't speak about this. But what's so interesting is that it's Jesus, right? The ultimate leader.
Right.
That's right.
And when Jesus says, look, I'm here, I'm showing you how to do this, and now I'm going to go, and you guys are going to do even greater things.
Yeah, even greater things.
Even greater things.
Jesus, he walked on water.
Yeah.
And he's saying, you guys are going to do greater things than me. I fed 5,000, you might feed 20.
Right.
Right?
But it's humility.
Yeah.
He served with humility, in humility every day for
That's right.
people, for the marginalized population. And that is why so strongly here at Mel Trotter, we believe, right? This is what we show up to do every day. Jesus says, when you are helping somebody, you're helping me.
Right.
When you're feeding the hungry, you're feeding me. And so, Jeff, can you talk a little bit about that through line, right, of Scripture, and how important it is for you to do this missional work, especially as it relates to, like you said, the local church or the local ministries here in Grand Rapids?
Right. There was a time in our country when the church was the hospital and the welfare system, if we call it something, and compassionate ministries. And I can look back and go, that's how God designed it, that we would care for one another. And at Ada Bible Church, we deeply desire to be a part of that God that's blessed us with much has called us to return much to Him and His people. And so that is just a high value for our church in multiple ways. I'm trying to frame it correctly. The opportunity we don't take lightly. The responsibility we don't take lightly as well. Ada Bible Church, with its size, is so unique because people expect something different from you. And so that's a tightrope I didn't expect to navigate was the expectation what our community and what the community has for our church as we serve in our city. Often people perceive it as undermet, which it also didn't experience when we are investing significant time and energy and resources into our community in the way that God's calls us to. So it's a unique ride in that way. Again, I think age, I couldn't have done this at 30, where I can receive the criticism, and take it in stride, comfortable with who God what church God has built at Ada Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I think the older we get, we sometimes feel like there's just less to prove, right? In our 20s, we have to prove our worth, we think. And then we rest in Jesus and go, we are worthy. We're made in God's image.
Now, with age, I do feel a different urgency.
Right.
Yes.
Less time available.
I can see the finish line is not that far down the road.
Yeah.
Stuart Briscoe, I don't know if you're familiar, just passed away, but he has this just a really interesting video on Focus on the Family, an interview they did where he just talks about the difference between running and walking.
Yeah.
And so God had built him as a runner, and he ran his whole life. And then finally, with age, he just understood that he needed to stop.
Yeah.
And started walking, and just what God revealed to him as he walked, that the beauty of the tree and the smell of the leaves and the fresh bakery across the street that he's ran by 1,000 times, but he never stopped and enjoyed what's being created there, and just that the freshness of operating at a different pace is God reveals some pretty amazing things.
Yeah. And we have, at Mel Trotter, we have, dozens of, now I have to smile when I say millennials because millennials are now 42, right? So millennials aren't 22 anymore. We have dozens of millennials and Gen Z after them that work here. And I always smile when I'm somewhere publicly and I will hear somebody of my age or older complain about the younger generation. And I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about, because the people we have at Mel Trotter of these younger generations, they are dedicated, passionate, hardworking. They love Jesus with a passion. They want to be his hands and feet. And I actually think they're going to do greater things. I mean, to the point about Jesus, right? I think they're going to do greater things than what we're doing.
Right.
And there's something freeing and energizing about that, because you're right. As I slow from a run to a walk, it also allows me to observe the people around me that are running and leading.
Absolutely.
And that are going to carry God's work on.
Right.
I
spent an afternoon, a good chunk of a day here a couple months ago with Seth, and I was serving food, helping serve lunch. I was shocked at the number of Gen Zers that were receiving care from you. That was my biggest takeaway. Is I expected it to be 60-year-olds. I guess in my mind, and I was really stunned at the amount of young people in there receiving care and help, and was inspired. It was really inspiring to see the care they were receiving.
Yeah, absolutely. We know nationally, and it's true here as well, the fastest growing demographics of homelessness are the youth and the families. Youth and families are skyrocketing. And I think you're right, though. Everybody thinks about the 60, 65-year-old alcoholic person with a long beard. It's not the fastest growing demographic anymore.
No.
Believe it.
Yeah.
Believe it.
I love seeing you in our kitchen, and I want to go back to volunteering for a second because we are just incredibly grateful. I know you're here frequently, and Sherry is amazing.
Sherry's amazing.
Yeah, I spent some time with her and interviewed her, and she's in one of our recent newsletters, and so she opened up and shared her heart. And I heard you call her an inspirer of volunteers in the church, right?
Right.
So what does that look like from behind the scenes?
There's the person that can stand up and just talk about an opportunity and just hope people catches on. But Sherry is the type of person that's going to grab you and hug you, and you'll catch her passion as much as the opportunity, and that's what I would mean by that. She transfers passion to people, and in a non-confronting, gentle way. If you spoke with, she's such a gentle, soft, grandmotherly. But passionate and strong and committed, and all in the same breath. And she loves Jesus, and passionately as well.
And wow, does she get some stuff done when she's here? It's incredible. They, she brings groups in, and they sort our donation rooms downstairs or in the kitchen, really wherever there is work to be done, which is everywhere all the time. And she just tackles it with great passion. She says, "Where can I help?" And really, she visited Next Step of West Michigan, and when she was there with us, she just said, I love speaking to the guests. So she came away from that with a new perspective. And she's here. She's proximate frequently. And yet every time she interacts with folks whom we're serving or in a workforce development program, she's like, I didn't know that. Now I know that. And then she passes that on. And it was just really encouraging to me to watch her light up as she shared that story.
So we might call her a DNA carrier, DNA transfer.
Yes.
She's just so it's a blessing to have. And our whole hospitality team participates with me in the missions journey. So I'm what we call central support. So kind of leadership for the entirety, and our hospitality coordinators at each campus, and Sherry is one of them.
Okay.
And so they're really hands and feet conduit to people.
Yeah.
And so they're one of my first stops when we have an opportunity is to meet with that team to go, hey, who do we,
Yeah.
how can
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
and try to turn an opportunity into reality.
Yeah. And what I love about it is, we've said for a long, long time, and others as well, is in some respects, organizations, ministries like Mel Trotter exist because decades ago, 100 years ago, the church kind of backed out.
Yep.
And the church kind of said, well, we could fund organizations, parachurch ministries to
Right.
do this work, and that might be in some ways a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And the respect that I have and have had for Ada is that's not what you do, right? I mean, we're talking about Sherry is you guys believe that the church should be out doing the work.
Correct.
And from Mel Trotter's standpoint, we get to have this exciting role then of being that conduit and creating that opportunity for the church to be the church with the people. And that is, in my opinion, that is the kingdom at work. When we're not saying, hey, we just want the churches to fund us and then leave us alone to do our work. No. How do we help churches come and get their congregation out to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to be proximate, like you said?
Absolutely.
And that, in my opinion, I don't know that there's any church better than Ada at doing that in our community.
No, thank you.
I really believe that.
I agree. And it's
Yeah.
true. And so just like Jeff, as you used to go to other churches and show them how to do all of the techie stuff, right? Maybe this is the next step. You can go.
That
I was going to ask
that,
him what he thinks about our new studio.
Yeah.
that work continues. I visit
Yeah.
churches weekly. I probably speak to 2 to 3 churches a week.
Wow.
The divide, the technology divide is really incredible. Even if they have technology, just the divide of experienced
Right.
people. And again, my age is helpful. So I have the reputation at Ada I carry with me, but also it's like I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
I can say that with confidence now. I've passed the 10,000 hour mark. Become an expert
Couple
at
times.
something. And
Yeah.
hey, just once.
Oh, wow.
Shots fired.
Says the young person at the table.
Says the kid.
Yeah, says the kid.
The kids' table. Why am I as high as you guys are? I should be like at a card table or something.
So yeah, it's but that need is significant, and it's all across our city. Not in just some people think it's just the urban church. Oh goodness, no, it's
Yeah.
I'm visiting churches all over the place. I spent a weekend in Milan, Michigan, kind of south of Ann Arbor.
I was going to say, I have no idea where that is.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like my favorite phone call I get now is, "Hey, I hear you're the church that helps churches."
Oh.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
That's
it brings me to
great.
tears almost every time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's just like that's
That should be on a T-shirt.
that's becoming our reputation, and we love it.
Yeah.
We absolutely love it. So a pastor reaches out with challenges and opportunities, and yeah, we can come and go spend a day doing training, and then I execute their Sunday and can see them in action, and they can see me in action. Yeah, it's just wonderful.
Sounds a lot like, in the book of Acts and we bringing everything. And so we have calls like that as well that I know feel very
From around the
similar-
country,
from
right,
around the
yeah.
country. And we feel very similarly. Like we're just blessed that people reach out and say, hey, we know you're in Grand Rapids. We know you guys have done these things in your programs to serve your guests well. We're in Seattle. We're in, can you talk to us about this? And then we go and visit a sister mission in Naples.
Right.
And so we just, it is about that reciprocity and learning and sharing, right? To say, how can we do better to serve more people?
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. And I think we've been careful to say, and I think you probably have too, Jeff, just because we're doing something here doesn't mean that that's what you should be doing in Denver.
I emphatically agree with that.
Right? You need to do what God is calling you to do there. Now, if there are some ways that we can walk alongside you and figure out what that is and help you make it excellent and things like that, we'd be happy to. But, we really try to screen those calls really well to go, okay, what is this conversation? Because if you're saying, I want to do what Mel Trotter is doing in Grand Rapids, I want to do it in Topeka. No, you got to do what God's calling you to do in Topeka.
And to know your people.
I don't really even know where Topeka is,
Yes,
but
you do.
people
They have
say it. Is that
barbecue
in Kansas?
or they have red shoes. Yeah, they have some stuff
okay.
happening there.
Yeah, one of the quickest lessons I learned when I began serving churches was I had to check Ada's values at the door.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
my experience and our values are two different things.
Yes.
And so I did not carry any of that forward. And often I had to disarm people that actually wanted help, but they were cautious because of Ada size and scope.
Right.
We're a white suburban church versus an urban church or a rural church, and treat every pastor as I would my own. So no matter the size of the church, if it was 30 people, I will still treat the senior pastor with the same respect I would treat our pastors. And that was from God and super helpful because it just lowered tensions, lowering anxieties fast, and
Right.
we were able to do great things together. And probably in your conversations, being a third party with no vested interest in this, it gives you the opportunity to discern and to share, wisdom openly, or share feedback or thoughts openly without, judgment or expectation.
Right.
Here it is, take it.
Right.
Here's what I see. If you want to know what has worked for us, we can talk about that. But
Yeah.
it's your church. You have to do this every week for 52 weeks a year.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm here for a day.
I just want to thank you again for serving with humility and
Yeah.
for sharing everything that you do with us today and in our community. Is any last things you'd like to leave us with, or things we
No,
haven't covered? Okay.
we love Mel Trotter, your guys' footprint in the city, and just the incredible work you're doing. And so we look forward to being a part of it for years to come.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you again for being here. And thank you, viewers and listeners, for joining us on episode 7. We're going to see you back here next week, but I have a favor. If you could like or subscribe, for those of you who are watching and listening right now, that would really help us to expand our reach of everyday humanity. And we're just, again, glad that you're showing up with us on this journey. See you next week.